Here comes Zack. Zack the manless. Zack the boy girl is here. Zack, are you gonna stand to pee or squat to pee like the girls as usual? These are the careless and cruel gossips that follow this little boy called Zack anywhere he went because the part that made him a man was missing. He had no penis, but he was born with it. His mom knew what happened, but she would not say the truth. Dear parents and future parents, Zack's story is a storytelling in English that teaches parental mistakes to avoid. Welcome to Ideka Story, our African Folktales channel. In a small village where the air is filled with the laughter of the children and the warmth of family, lived a little boy named Zack. But unlike the other children, Zack carried a secret that brought him pain, isolation, and questions he could not understand. This is his story, a story of love, mistakes, and the consequences that followed. Zack was born without a part that made him feel different from the other boys. He had no penis. When they stood to pee, Zack had to spot, just like the girls. He tried to be brave, but the whispers followed him everywhere. Zack walking into his classroom and heading to his seat, the whispered and gossip began. The first boy whispering, Zack the manless is here. Is he a boy or is he a girl? Then the second boy laughing, today is our sports day. Which team will you play for? Is it the boys or the girls? Zack knew the gossip was all about him. He clenches his fist under the desk, his eyes welling up with tears. He tries to focus on his schoolwork, but the teasing never stops. The teasing was endless. It wasn't just the whispers. It was the way they looked at him, the way they laughed. Zack's heart grew heavier with every cruel word. At first, his mother told him it was just the way he was born. She said some boys were just like him. But Zack was growing up, and the truth became harder to ignore. Zack rushed home from school. He burst through the door, tears streaming down his face. He called his mother. Mom, Mom, why am I different? Why do the other boys laugh at me? You told me, you told me it was normal. Zack cried. His mother, visibly uncomfortable, tried to reassure him once again, but there was hesitation in her voice. Zack, Zack, it's just how you are. It's your nature. Zack's mother said nervously. But Zack wasn't convinced anymore. He knew something wasn't right, so he turned to his father, hoping for answers. Zack stormed into his father's workshop, where his father was sitting with a serious expression, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Dad, please, Dad, please tell me the truth, Dad. His father took a deep breath, his eyes filled with sadness. He stood up and went to a drawer. He pulled out and brought out an old rusted knife. Then Zack's father said softly, I knew this day would come, Zack. This knife, it's called the cruel knife, and it is the reason for your pain. About 6 years ago, you were barely able to walk. You were always playing with sharp or dangerous objects. Each time your caregiver tried to retrieve them from you, you always cry at the top of your voices. And your mom will always come out to order them to leave you with them. She didn't want to see you or hear you cry because you were our only child and we waited so long before you came. Your mom's seldom words on you had been, Rapuya, meaning leave him alone. Even when I tried to correct her, she would argue and say Zack is a child. Leave him alone. It continued that way until one fateful day you were playing with a sharp object in the kitchen. You grabbed this knife, and while a maid tried to take it away, you began to scream. The maid took it from you with a force but with carefulness. But you, Zack, you let out a loud cry and your mother rushed in. Leave him! Rampuya! Let him play! He's just a child. So the maid stepped back. You sat down and began playing with the sharp knife. Zack's father narrated, bitterness and sorrow written all over his face. You held the knife by the head according to the maid and was making koi sound with the sharp pointing edge on the pie floor. The sound of the knife scraping the floor echoed through the house until you accidentally stabbed yourself. Your penis was severely injured. Blood spilled on the floor. You were rushed to the hospital, and the only option to save your life was to cut off all the dangling flesh and made opening for pee. It is your mother's fault, Zack's father cried, hitting his folded wrist on the desk. Everyone in the house was against you playing with sharp objects, but she thought it was better not to make you cry. Zack's eyes was filled with tears and his heart was heavy with bitterness. Gently, he took the knife from his father and stared at it with disdain. So, all these years is because of this knife? Zack speaking to the rusted knife. The father consoled him and took the cruel knife from him and to the place where it was hidden. But he didn't know Zack tiptoed and followed him. The truth crushed Zack's heart. He has spent his entire life in pain, all because his mother didn't want him to cry. Zack's father hid the knife away in the cupboard, but Zack watched. His eyes burned with anger throughout the night, that his eyes knew no sleep. The next morning, he refused to go to school, claiming he had an headache. His father and everyone else left for the day, leaving Zack alone with his mother. Zack tiptoed to the cupboard where the knife was hidden. He stared at it, remembering all the years of humiliation, the pain, the lies. His heart was heavy and his thoughts were clouded by bitterness. Slowly, he walked to his mother's room. She was taking a nap, unaware of what was about to happen. Zack's heart was filled with anger, a rage he couldn't control. The weight of the years of mockery, the lies, and the pains were too much for him to bear. This was Zack standing by his mother's bed, the cruel knife in his hand. His hand trembled, but in his mind, he believed what he was about to do was the only way to release his pain. In the evening, the family returned home. I mean, Zack's father returned from work, and the other members of the family returned from their workplaces. They walked into the house, calling out Zack and his mother. There was an eerie silence. As they reached the bedroom, they met with a horrifying sight. Zack's mother lied motionless, the cruel knife plunged beneath her stomach. Zack was sitting in the corner of the room, tears streaming down his face. Leave her! Rapuya! Leave her alone! Zack whispering through his tears. The family rushed to Zack, shaking him, asking him what happened. But all Zack could say was, leave her alone, leave her alone, leave her alone, Rapuya, over and over again. Then the police arrived. Zack is being taken away, but he was still muttering the same words. Rapuya, leave her alone. The moral of the story: Zack's story is a tragedy born from love, but also from mistakes. His mother loved him so much that she couldn't bear to see him cry. But sometimes love means saying no, even when it is hard. Children do not have the sense of responsibilities that adults do. That is why it is up to us to protect them even from themselves. Rebuke them when necessary, guide them, and always take dangerous objects away from them, no matter how much they cry. Because in the end, the consequences of ignoring those dangers can be far worse than tears. And remember, no matter how much you love your child, sometimes love means knowing when to say no. Take this word and meditate on it. Foolishness is bound in the heart of our child, but the rod of correction will drive it away from him. Proverbs 22:15. If you found value in Zack's story, share it with others. Let's take a moment to reflect on how we can better protect and guide our children in our lives. Bye.